The idea behind the show is simply asking guests what they would tell a stranger on a plane if they were sitting next to them and the stranger asked them for advice.
The scenery is passing very fast, but the seer is constant. The one who's seeing is the same.
Let me appreciate you for asking a question that I haven't been asked after 2,500 or so interviews over the years.
Is you have to drop the ego, which is everyone's greatest obstacle.
In 2008, Grant and I had been married for 4 years. I was pregnant with my first child. The economy was collapsing, and we were on the verge of losing everything financially.
So, hello, everybody. It's Corey Poirier. Excited to be back with the latest edition of the show. Excited as well to have a brand new first-time guest with us. As some of our listeners know, love welcoming new guests into our community. So, Martin, Lou, so excited to have you here today. Martin, where we usually start is we usually actually get the guests to tell us a little bit about themselves before we jump into some meatier questions, because I always feel you know yourself best and you're probably more likely to say something that I wouldn't think of. And it also doesn't sound like a scripted read of a bio. So right. Having said that, Martin, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself before we dive right in?
Absolutely. So I'm the CEO of Comtrex. Comtrex is the largest platform in North America that connects shippers, so anybody shipping containers or shipping commodities across U.S., Canada, and Mexico. We're the first platform that connects all rail served terminals, ports, warehouses, all in one digital platform. Really, the vision was to create effectively almost a virtual railroad. So that if you're a shipper looking to move anything by freight, my former life, I was a commodities trader for JP Morgan and Bear Stearns. So the way I was able to get this idea was we were moving about 5 to 7 million tons of coal per year. And I saw a lot of inefficiencies within that program. And I thought to myself, why couldn't there be a better way to do this? Because eventually the real thesis at the time was there was going to be a paradigm shift in generations. So by 2020, 50% of the workforce globally will be millennials. And then by 2025, it'll be almost 75%. So, with them being digital natives, I knew that there was going to be this trend away from phone calls. No different than travel agents 20 years ago, and how now really nobody books a flight, via phone. They all do it website. So I knew that everything was trending in that direction. So 8 years ago, I started Comtrex, and now today we're the largest platform. We have, call it over 1,800 transit facilities, 8,000 warehouses, over 3,500 members, 1,500 shippers, partners with all 6 Class 1 railroads. And growing. And this has been something that, quite honestly, has been a big passion for me. And I know passion and purpose is just something that's really important to you, Corey. So when I look at my life and I'm thinking about, what am I going to spend my time doing? I kind of think about it in a regret minimization framework. When I'm 6 years old, I'm thinking back, back in my earlier days, what exactly, do I want to be thinking about? I do not want to be thinking about like, I should have, I could have, I should have done this. It's always the one that got away, and I do not want to have any regrets about that. So I took the leap of faith and started Comtrex, and it's been a very fun ride so far.
Wow. Well, I mean, I love the innovation behind that. And to your point, I remember it wasn't that long ago. I did, I guess it was, and it's funny when you say regrets, it made me think of something I was going to share, but about when I started stand-up comedy. But years ago, I worked with this travel company. And so you made me think of the travel side. And the whole purpose of why I was working with them is they had traditional agents. They did stuff online, but they were really trying to, I'm going to say save. Honestly, the owner cared about the people. And so he had made his money. He could have walked away, but he truly wanted to keep the industry going where they still had travel agents because he wanted to provide for their families. And so what they hired me for was to do a strategic plan. So let's talk about what we could be doing differently. And by the way, they saw for 5 years, they worked off that plan and saw growth and everything else in an industry that's dying. But anyway, but what's fascinating to me is even at that time, I think this is going to be 15 years or more ago. I was like going to their staff as a travel agent to book my flights and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then what happened was somebody introduced me to Expedia, and everything changed. And what I'm getting at is now, whether it's Expedia or Booking.com or whether you go to a travel agency online, I haven't talked to a travel agent like on the phone in probably like 12 years. And to your
Well,
point, like,
wow,
yeah,
you're ahead of the curve. That was like right when Expedia and Priceline were getting off the ground.
yeah, I mean, and I travel a lot too. Like whether, and it could even be my team booking it for me, but either way, everything we book is online. And not only is it convenient, but I find if you were going to a traditional travel agent, you'd have to say, well, what deals can you get me? And then they say, oh, let me look and get back to you and stuff like that. Whereas you go to those Expedia stuff now, like those type of sites, and it just goes, here's the 10 best deals. Like
That's
on
exactly right.
and so
That's
like,
exactly right.
and so is that the same kind of idea with you guys? Like that, is that the
Yeah.
comparison that they,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. So we have four marketplaces. We have a marketplace for railcar storage, for leasing rail cars, buying and selling rail equipment, and then transloading is the marketplace we launched 3 years ago. And really, that's the focus. And transloading is moving freight, containers, or commodities or raw goods from one mode of transportation to another. So that's like going from a ocean going freight vessel to a drayage truck, or from going from a rail car to a truck. And think about anything that moves across the world is touching different modes of transportation. So transloading is that mechanism that sort of effectively connects all properties up and down the supply chain through truck, rail, air, ocean, like through all these different modes of transportation. So when I started this business, I did not anticipate that we were going to go into transloading. I was focused on the railroad market and really sort of connecting those dots. And the data in everything we do here is really data-driven decisions. We just looked at the data, and that was a small category within our rail services directory. Transloading was, and it was getting about 2.5 to 3x more views than anything else on our site. So our data scientists said, "What is this transloading thing that's getting all of our traffic?" And so after digging into it, we realized, wow, this is a highly fragmented, very opaque, illiquid market, and shippers constantly need it because if they don't have a rail served property, they got to find a translator to be able to truck it to a location, put it on a rail car goes to another location. If that location is not rail served, they take it off that rail car, put it onto a truck, and then last mile it over to the location. So so many businesses that we're familiar with, really sort of what they end up doing and focusing on is not where they started. And I think that's just kind of a good metaphor or analogy for life. As much as you think that you want to go to the Northeast, in your life, you never know that you're actually end up in the Southeast because of, 2 or 3 different decisions that you make.
yeah, I think that's important. And also it brings up the point that some people fight that, some people refuse to accept that, like maybe it's their baby and they got in their head that, I started this business to be this, and I'm going to prove to the world it has to be this.
That's
But
right.
I think the ones that survive, maybe I'll go so far as to say thrive, but for sure the ones that survive are the ones that do what you said, which is pivot if they need to. Like so, and the pivot can still include the first idea,
That's
but
right.
it also embracing what could be either the next thing or what's coming up or what you're seeing is big. And so I guess I'm curious as well, when you say you saw that trend going, I didn't ask you this, and I might be able to read between the lines, but when you first launched this and planned it, you talked about me being maybe ahead of the curve when it came to booking on Expedia and stuff. How far ahead of the curve were you in seeing this and saying, I'm going to launch this? Because you said you're the biggest now, but how far ahead were you of other people that ultimately did that as well?
So nobody to this day has created a transfer marketplace, but at that time, there were a few websites and there were offline brokers that were actually brokering rail cars. And that was the first marketplace we built was leasing. And that was the biggest problem at the time I was trying to solve is, when we needed to make a move, let's just say from the Powder River Basin in Wyoming or from the Central Appalachian in West Virginia, the problem or the choke point for us was finding rail cars quickly. So I was always making phone calls, waiting for offers, and by the time I finally got myself get hands on equipment, the opportunity went away. So I was like, why is this any different than renting a car where I can go into a site, be able to identify that I want to go to, Newark or go to, Bush Airport, and then find the type of car that I need and then book it online without even talking to anybody. So that was the initial idea, was creating effectively an equipment-based site so that anybody moving rail cars across the country can go to one site, see all the inventory, and then be able to book it. Now, I think the other component to this thesis was, this generation of digital natives, is really data driven, right? Now, when you think about our lives and how we make decisions, I don't care if it's Uber Eats and buying food, or if it's actually booking a ride, or if it's travel. We are so used to being able to have choices in front of us and look at prices before we engage a human being. So why, if that's how we operate in our personal lives, why would that be any different in your professional life? I don't think relationships will ever go away. There will always be salespeople, and then the high touch relationships will always be there. But I think that will be further down the spectrum of when they want to engage. I think nowadays, and I only think this trend's going to continue. People want information. They want data at their fingertips. Like, I'm not picking up the phone and calling United Airlines unless for some reason I have an issue or a disruption in my travel. And if I'm picking up the phone, I'm literally rolling my eyes like, oh my God, I have to be on the phone for 20, 30 minutes. And you travel a lot, so I'm sure you've probably experienced a delay or cancellation. You can't get to someone in line because you're waiting. There's 20 people waiting to change their flight, and you're just like, I'm just going to make the phone call.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I mean, to your point, now, like, it's funny. I saw a post the other day, and somebody said, "What are you doing?" And the other person said, "I'm waiting for my phone to stop ringing." And he said, "Why?" He said, "Because I don't use it for that." And that's the world we're in, right? Like, what? Like, it was almost like, without
That's
saying it in
hilarious.
the cartoon, it's like the person's almost like, I don't even know what it's ringing. I don't know what that's for. And honestly, mine, nobody that I know even knows what my phone sounds like, because it's been on silence since the beginning of the era. Like, my phone doesn't ring. Like, I have mine in silence. But now I have one of my phones goes to a reception where you talk to a person live, and then the other one, I do text like crazy and I reply. So you still get the same level of service, if you want to call it that, but it doesn't ring ever. And that's kind of what I become accustomed to. So to your point as well, yeah, now, like, these days, I hate to say it, but I'd rather, test something and try something online 3 times versus maybe it's easier to just call someone. But we're so used to it. We're conditioned to now do everything online. And to your point, like, when I think about like Uber and all that stuff, I mean, we can't call them, I don't think, but I don't even know where my head would come at to say I should call Uber.
When you order food, for example, if you were going to order takeout, when's the last? Do you call the restaurant and ask them what they have on their menu, or are you going to Uber Eats, or are you going to Grubhub or one of these apps, looking what they have and booking it online and waiting for 20 minutes for a guy to show up and give you your food?
So that's a great question. We're in a small town, so we don't have Uber Eats, but having said that, and we have a thing called Carry or something. I don't even know what it's called because nobody uses it, I don't think. But I don't even know what that's what's called. My Carry might be our equivalent of Uber. We have no Uber and we have no Uber Eats here because it's so small. But to answer your question, interestingly, I don't ever call to see what's on the menu. But some of the places I'll call to place the order. But what's fascinating is my girlfriend will not. Like, I'll literally be like, we need to place, like, we're going to place an order. And she goes, okay, I'll get on the app. And I say, well, like, it could be something. I'm like, well, can you ask them this question? I'll ask them on the email. Like, she doesn't, like, I don't think she's ever called Domino's, but she orders this pizza every week.
Domino's Pizza has it. I mean, not to point them out, but with that experience, and this is all about user experience, right? At the end of the day, everything that you do in your life and I do in my life is all about creating the best customer experience possible. And what Domino's has done is they said, you know what? The same way you track your parcel when you order on Amazon or UPS, we're going to do the same thing for the pizza. So they have these 7, 8 stages where they're like, the pizza's in the oven, the pizza's been pulled out. Now the pizza's getting ready to come out, and you literally, it's almost like like they're gamifying that experience so that by the time it's in someone's car driving to, it's like your mouth is salivating because you're like, oh my God, I can just imagine the pizza cooking in the oven. Now it's in the car. Now it's coming to us. So you don't get that same experience on the phone because who knows what the person on the other phone line is going to be. 20 calls are coming in. He's busy. He may be in a good mood or bad mood, but that doesn't give you a consistent user experience. So my job here at Comtrix is how do you create the best user experience possible? That's what Jeff Bezos talks about all the time at Amazon. He's like customer obsession, all about the experience. So I think when you're thinking about any digital business, you have to put the customer first and thinking about what is going to provide them with an experience that just wows them so much and creates such a great experience where it's not just 2x better than on the phone talking to somebody, but it's 10x better because of all these sort of psychological or all these human elements of unknown inconsistencies of variables are all removed, and now you've standardized the process so that it's very easy to be able to do everything from start to finish.
I love that. And I want to dive into a different direction, but you made me think of this because I just saw this today. I don't know if you can see this cartoon, but it's like 2 guys and one guy says, wait. She just added it back to her cart. And then at the bottom it says somewhere at Amazon.
Oh,
but it's like the guy, like, for those that can't see this, if you're listening to the podcast, the guy has like 3 filing cabinets in a cart, and then the other guy's pulled one out. It's the biggest one. He's walking away and sweating, and it's like they're implying she must have taken it out of the cart, so he's taking it out of the cart. He's going to put it back. But to your point, that's the Amazon user experience. They let you feel comfortable. I need to cancel this out of my cart. It doesn't feel like, if you were on the phone instead I had to cancel this, you feel like guilty that you're canceling it.
100%.
But part of your experience is they're like, I don't want this one. Oh, I'm going to add this one. And it feels like a great user experience. So it's weird you brought that up, and I just saw that day I was going to show it to my girlfriend, and I haven't yet.
And then another example of this is, whenever myself or my wife, we want to buy clothes for our kids, before you'd go to the mall, or you go to, a store and go in and shop. And now, the idea is, well, why would I do that? The inventory is so limited when you go into a store, and everything has been picked through, and they don't have the right sizes. And why would I do that when I could just pop on my phone, hit a few buttons, and it's at my doorstep, potentially in 24 hours or 48 hours, right? How do you compare that to driving to a store, parking, walking out, and then finding a piece of item that you like, but for some reason it's in double XL or small, and you're like, I'm a large. Of course, I'm a size large in everything, and that's the first size to go, always, in anything. So I think in our daily lives, that psychology, why wouldn't that be transposed to your professional life? That would be the same exact way someone's going to procure freight, or figure out a way to get rail cars, or figure out how to move a container from, China to Chicago. They want to engage everything through a very easy, data-driven customer experience.
I love it because I love innovation, and what we're talking about here. It fascinates me that people looked at stuff and said, you know what? This is how this could be, just like Uber, right? Like the main guy was driving, in a car, maybe a taxi, had a bad experience. And he's like, you know what? This could be much better and smoother. And to me, like when I look at Uber, like the system they have to have, because they're transporting people in real time, and the system they have to have to make that run smooth, like people like to knock them, but my gosh, like it's fascinating to me, that stuff that has to all work for Uber to work. And they're even constantly improving it. Like, for example, I noticed a new thing now in this last trip I was on, that last 2 trips, it always says, even if it's a short ride, make sure to put on your seatbelt. They never used to say that. And then the other one, though, which I think is new, is I got a message. I was in LA, so of course we were stopped in traffic, and I got a message saying, you haven't moved for a while. Can you confirm you're okay? Yes or no?
That's amazing.
Like, and now you can, the newest one somebody told me is now you can even pick, like, so for example, one of the issues or complaints people had, I guess, like if you're a female getting in with maybe a male driver and having a concern, now you can even pick which driver you want, male or female.
Really?
Yeah. So those are all, I think, innovations in the last 3 months. So
that's amazing. I mean, that is all to the user experience, right? So one of the hardest business models to execute is a marketplace model, because you have a 2-sided or 3-sided marketplace. You have multiple customers, so you have to figure out a way, the chicken and egg question, like who do you service first? And you have to create an equally great experience on both sides of the marketplace. And because you're an intermediary, you also have to be able to create, a really, really sort of smooth experience for everyone in the middle, right? So if you have a supply and demand side, sometimes there's a third dimension to that, where they also have to participate because they are an actor in that sort of whole sort of scenario. And the marketplaces are so hard to execute because it's very difficult to get that flywheel spinning. Right? To get that flywheel spinning is very difficult because, once someone has a bad user experience, they're never coming back. So we're fortunate enough that we've been able to delight our customers enough to where they keep coming back and they say, wow, this is so much easier than picking up the phone, calling a website, calling a particular terminal, because at the end of the day, this is still a very antiquated sort of industry, and they're still catching up to the times, right? So when I'm thinking about this marketplace business, I'm thinking to myself, if I was on the customer side of the business, how would I want my experience to be? And we just do everything to optimize around that. And that's what's taken this business so long to do is, it's just human psychology. And the things you just mentioned for Uber, I mean, Uber's been around for over a decade, right? And we're sitting here late 2023, and they're like, oh, they may want to choose what gender of a driver, or, oh, they may want to, they may not be safe because they haven't moved in a while. We should probably check it out. Like, it takes time to iterate to be able to get to those nuanced sort of offerings.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so we got to now, Martin, we've got to learn a lot about your work and the way your head works as well, which is cool. And the business that you're in. So I want to move away from that, and I'm going to ask you. I'll call them rapid fire questions, but you don't have to answer them rapid fire. But they're all built around one word. So I want to ask you three back-to-back questions before we let you run. So one is around legacy. So if we talk about a big word like legacy, what does the word mean to you, and or what would you like your legacy to be?
So when I think legacy, I'm going to answer it in the context of the latter component of that question. I think that I want to leave this world a better place than it was when I showed up. Something that's been very important to me my entire life is, am I making an impact? I was always somebody who all tried to, whatever situation I'm in, whatever job, whatever sports team, whatever organization I was in, I want to be somebody who's making an impact, and it's a positive impact, right? It's very easy to make a negative impact in any situation, but how do you make a positive impact? And throughout my life, I've always wanted to create things that would live beyond me. So when I built this marketplace, I want to build something that lives beyond me. I was at Boston College Law School, and I created one of the largest student organizations to put the business school and law school together, because I didn't want to be a lawyer halfway through. I said, I want to be a business guy. Why isn't there an organization that takes the business school students and all the business jobs you can get as a law school student? And I built that. It's been tried before, but I said, you know what? I want to be the guy. And now it's like the third largest organization at BC Law. And so everything that I do in my life, that legacy question is one of the things that's part of my filter as to, is this something that I want to do? Because if it is, then I want to know that once I put the effort into it, that it's going to be something that lives beyond me and beyond sort of the time that I spend to it. So I'm always thinking scale and thinking beyond me. What can this evolve into? I may not be the guy. I can get it from 0 to 1, but I may not be the guy to get it from 1 to 2 or from 2 to 3. But I'm very good at getting things from 0 to 1.
Oh, I love that. So how about success? So another big word. What I love, just like legacy, I find that answers are as different as people are different. But how do you define success, and what does it mean to you?
So success in my life is framed up pretty much in two different contexts. You have your professional life and you have your personal and family life. And between those two buckets, my family is first, really. That my faith and family really drives sort of everything that I do in my life, and everything that I do in work is really to be able to provide for my family, my immediate family, my extended family. Because back to the legacy question, I want to be able to create enough of an infrastructure and be able to create kids and hopefully grandkids that can leave this world a better place, because they're going to live longer than I am. So hopefully I've done a great job as a parent to be able to add 2 more human beings to society that are going to create value in some form or another. And when I say create value, it doesn't necessarily be economic value, but it could be philanthropic value. It could be a value in different respects. But at the end of the day, my legacy, my most important legacy is the next generation of Luz, or the next generation of my kids, and what they're going to do with their lives, and then what they're going to be able to teach their kids and their kids, right? Because all we we're just one little blip in a continuum of centuries and centuries of human beings. So what can we do in this large continuum to really sort of create an impact overall to make the world a better place? And I think the best thing that anyone can do is take care of their family and make sure that their family is better off, so that when you leave this earth, then you have the ability for your kids to continue that legacy on. So I love my job. I love what I'm doing professionally. I'm definitely making a difference. But at the end of the day, when you're thinking about what's the most important thing, really, to me, it's family.
Amazing. So my last question, and it might be the most important, but at the same time, it's maybe the least sort of spontaneous question, which is for people that have been listening to this great interview, learning all this, about innovation, about the work that you do, about how you view life, success, legacy. Is there a hub, or is there a place you would send them if they want to learn more about the company and about you personally?
Absolutely. That's an easy one. Comtrex, I like softball questions. Comtrex.com. So COMMTREX.com is the site. And then you could also hit me on LinkedIn as well if you ever wanted to reach out. Martin Liu, is my LinkedIn profile, or you can find me on Twitter at LEW_MARTIN. But you know, I want to leave this last note for the audience and for you. You know, at the end of the day, I think life is really short. And you know, it may feel sort of the journey is not about the end destination. I really do feel it's about that enjoying the process along the way, because a lot of times you think, you know, the real gratification is at the end of the rainbow, but really the true gratification, something I try to teach my kids, the real gratification is enjoying the process and enjoying the marathon, not getting to the finish line, but you know, enjoying the difficulty and the adversity that comes along the way. So, you know, if there's anything that I could sort of leave to the audience, or just, you know, sort of leave to you and the folks that are listening to this, is, you know, really sort of be present and enjoy the moment, and enjoy the journey, whatever the journey is. And wherever you are in your life, you know, just know that you probably are where you're supposed to be, and that you can always improve, because you have the next day to always change things. So no matter how bad the day is, or no matter how bad the situation is, I always know when I go to bed and I wake up, I have the ability to change it and make it better.
Amazing. And Martin, one of the quotes I've said over the years is, what if the journey is really the destination? And you just summed that up, I think. You know, like, that's the whole idea of, you know, a lot of people go, I can't wait until I hold the book in my hands, but they didn't enjoy the journey of getting the book in their hands. Well, what if that's the case? And then they get the book in their hand, they're like, oh, that's it?
That's right.
Feeling. So that happened to me. And so I started asking myself, what if the actual destination I'm looking for is the journey itself?
That's exactly right.
So
that's exactly right. And I'm glad you acknowledged that, because a lot of times it's very hard to look past, you know, for the present. But if you don't enjoy the present, you're never going to enjoy the future, and you're never really going to appreciate the past.
Amazing. Those are great final words. So Martin, this has been an absolute pleasure. I thank you so much. And with your permission, I'll call it a to be continued.
Absolutely. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate your time.